Hello, good evening. How are you doing today? Hope you've been having a fantastic week so far. A lot has been going on around the world, different stuff. COVID 19, strife, the blackout in Texas, everywhere frozen over, lots of stuff. A lot of people caught off. Two people have died so far in that pretty nasty situation. Who would have ever thought that you would have a power outage of that magnitude in the United States? Even though we do see reports of things like wildfires knocking out, entire communities and all that, but you wouldn't ordinarily think that you would see a blackout, especially during winter. But hey, that happened. Now, a lot of stuff has been happening in Nigeria. Nigeria is the largest country, the largest black country in the world, with a population of well over 200 million people. Out of that 200 million plus people, you have so many that are in diaspora who are doing wonderful things, who are rising to the top of their careers. You have the latest one, the most recent one, who is Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who was recently appointed the DG of the World Trade Organization. It doesn't get better than that. For your career, for you to be able to rise to that level, that shows that there's a lot of pedigree behind it, both academic and personal pedigree. She's done quite a lot. She was once Nigeria's finance minister. She's been in so many organizations, the World Bank, and name it. She's done everything you can think of. And she's knocked the ball out of the park by becoming the first female to be the DG of the World Trade Organization and also the first Nigerian to be the DG of the World Trade Organization. That goes to tell you the type of talent that is abundant in Nigeria. A lot of stuff that is going on there. When you look at fintech, Nigerians are there, they're knocking it out of the park. When you look at tourism, they even come up with tourism technology as well. So there's a lot. You now start to wonder, if you have so much talent in Nigeria, how come you actually now have so much strife in the country? The issue of the strife that's going on in the country is unbelievable. Unbelievable. You see cases of herdsmen who are bandits, who are actually not professional herdsmen, in my opinion, who are carrying rifles all over the country. And they're killing people, raping people, kidnapping, unbelievable stuff. What you would expect ordinarily is that herdsmen would just naturally follow the cattle, control, make sure that they don't go into people's farmlands. They do not destroy people's produce. But that was happening, and there have been clashes over that. Reports from the middle belt of Nigeria. There are reports in the northern part of Nigeria. There are reports in the eastern part of Nigeria. And recently, there are also reports from the western part of Nigeria. The western part of Nigeria has turned into a conflagration where markets are being burned, produce are being burned, people's goods, and of recent, people's lives. Why? Because the country is collapsing? Is Nigeria actually on the brink of collapse? Nobody truly knows exactly what is going on. We do not get adequate information from the presidency in most cases, where you would expect that for something of this magnitude, where civilian lives are lost, where so much damage is being caused, you would ordinarily think that the government would be very, very quick to respond to try to douse the ethnic tensions in the country. Nigeria is deeply divided when it comes to religious and ethnic sentiments. A lot of conversations are had around it, and a lot of people keep battling themselves over things that ordinarily should have just been a mere discussion. We have seen where two people actually got into an altercation, and then the next thing you know, it turns into a full-fledged tribal war. Now, is it that Nigerians don't learn? Because when you look at Nigeria's history, and you look at what has happened since 1966, where a group of young men who were wearing army uniforms, majors basically, they're called the five majors, actually went and decided that it was time for them to take over the affairs of the country and try to turn things around because they felt that the governments of the day, because as of that time, you had the regional governments and then you had the parliament. They felt that the governments of the day were not doing their duty and decided to attempt a coup. It was very bloody. Several people died, several people lost their lives. And before we knew what was going on, it turned into an ethnic war. Some of the officers felt that their leaders from their part of the country were purposefully targeted and they decided to retaliate. Now, that retaliation was part of the events that led to the Nigerian Civil War. Nigerian Civil War was one of the bloodiest wars on the continent of Africa. There were so many lives lost. There's loads of gory images, even though cameras were not that common back then, but there are loads of gory images about the kind of stuff that happened in eastern Nigeria. Loads of children, kwashoko, people practically eating themselves, starvation, food blockade. There were all sorts. Several books have been written about that conflagration, that nasty war that happened. Some of them were even written by some of the people that actually were involved in that civil war. Now, everybody told their own story from their own side or their own perspective of the story. Some just simply a case of they needed to do something to make themselves relevant. Some actually wrote stories that people could relate to. Some actually delved into their side of the story from an informed perspective, so to speak. But at the end of the day, nobody truly knows what really went on in the background with the major players. You still have the likes of General Gowon. He's still alive, but he's giving an account from his perspective. The late Colonel Ojukwu gave his own account from his own perspective. Several other players did the same thing. But you would think that with the no victor, no vanquished, declaration by the regime of the then General Yakubu Gowon, things will settle down. Nigerians will start to work around, integration. But alas, that has not been the case. We have seen a case where friends who have been together for 30, 40 years actually don't talk to themselves anymore. Why? Ethnic sentiments. It is a very painful thing when you come to think about it that so much effort was put into Nigeria being an integrated country. I went to federal government college. Federal government colleges were set up to try to integrate the country. So people from different parts of the country were encouraged to go to other parts of the country, aside from where they come from, to go and mix with other cultures, integrate with them, make long-lasting friends. I have made friends that we're still talking like we're brothers for the past 30 years, and they're from different parts of the country. As a matter of fact, a lot of the time, I don't even remember where they're from because it's not important. What is important is the strength of character of the individual that you're interacting with. So you now start to wonder how people who have lived together for 30, 40 years could actually start rising up against each other and actually start attacking each other, both physically and verbally. And in a lot of cases on social media, we're seeing where people, yes, have a right to their own opinion, but their opinions seem a bit too strong, especially when they're expressing their sentiments a bit too deep, if you might ask me. Now, several things have happened in the past week in Ibadan, in a place called Shasha, where there was a misunderstanding of some sort, and the results were devastating, quite devastating. Now, we're waiting for our guest. He's been having some technical issues, but we're sure he's going to join us very soon, Jawad Iginla. And in the meantime, we're going to show you a video or two about what's going on in Ibadan. We'll be right back.
A source said people in the area woke up to another round of clashes as both youth from the Yoruba and Hausa extractions vowed to square it out.
Can you see the Hausas running? They are running for their life. Wọ́n pọ̀ lẹ́yìn o. Wọ́n pọ̀ gan lẹ́yìn o. Ẹ má bọ̀ àwọn kẹ̀kí ló tẹ̀. Yorùbá ni wá, 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 Yorùbá ni wá. Ẹ̀gbọ́n Yorùbá ni wá, Yorùbá ni wá, Yorùbá ni wá, Yorùbá ni wá. Sasa ti tán. Sasa ti tán. Sasa ti tán.
Wow. Okay. So for the benefit of those who do not understand what was being said or what was going on there. So an attack, ethnic motivated attack, took place in a place called Shasha in Ibadan, in Oyo State, western Nigeria. Nobody is sure exactly what led to the initial skirmish, but the result was a lot of people were displaced. A lot of people were chased. A lot of people ran for their lives. A lot of property was destroyed. And what the people in the video were saying was, Shasha is finished. Shasha is on fire. You can see the Hausas who are from northern Nigeria, that you can see the Hausas running for their lives. Now, should anybody who is Nigerian be running for their lives in Nigeria? Should we have a situation where people get up and they're displaced? Where or how did we lose our humanity as a people? How did we get to this point where we cannot even tolerate each other? Because the funny thing about it is this. If Nigeria does split up into several countries, it still does not mean that your friends are not your friends, because you will still have friends across the borders. So if you have friends across the borders, are you going to say that because you're Igbo, Hausa, or Yoruba, you can not come and visit? Israel was created as a result of what happened in World War II, what they went through in Germany, especially. Loads of them were killed, that's the Jews. And at the end of the day, a country was formed. Now that country that was formed, do you actually think that Germans don't visit Israel or Israelis don't visit Germany? Do you think they still don't do business together? Do you think they still don't relate together? How deep can your sentiments go that you actually cannot see what is in front of you? Every state in Nigeria is governed by an indigenous person to that zone. You probably might not be an indigenous of that state where that governs, because you have Lagos, for instance, has been a melting pot for several years, in fact, for hundreds of years. And there are several people who have not been an indigenous of Lagos State who have become governors of Lagos State. We have seen several of them rise who have been in corridors of power since forever in Lagos State. And they're from all over. And they have all been living peacefully. And they've all been relating accordingly. Now, the collaboration between the diverse ethnic groups in Lagos State is probably one of the reasons why Lagos is such a successful state. Lagos could actually even be a country on its own, which is 20 million plus population. It could be a country on its own, generate enough revenue. It has too much going on for it. So it's that melting pot that's actually making it what it is. And then you now have the landmass called Nigeria, who some call a geographical description. Well, I don't know about that. I was born in Lagos State, and I went to school in Lagos, and I also went to school in Kaduna State. I have friends who are age-long friends, who I've been friends with since I was maybe 5, 6 years old, and they're still my very close friends today. Their names, don't strike a chord because their names don't tell me where they're from. Like I said earlier on, it's rather unimportant. But is it a case of it is Nigerians that have a problem, or it is the government that has a problem? Because when you say it is the government that has a problem, you have successive governments that are coming and going. If we can't hold the military to account, at least let's start from 1999. 1999 to 2021 is 22 years. Are we saying that in 22 years, we have not been able to actually come to some form of accord over the fact that there is a country called Nigeria? And everywhere you go, you will recognize a Nigerian. We have more or less the same characteristics. We talk loudly on the phone, we shout a lot, we like to party, and we all love to fraternize. Practically every Nigerian I know, when they leave Nigeria, they hop on a plane, they go to another country, give them 48 hours. They want to eat Nigerian food. They don't say, give me Igbo food. They don't say, give me Hausa food or give me Yoruba food. They don't say any of that. They say they want to find a Nigerian restaurant, or they want to eat Nigerian food, or they want to drink Nigerian beer. So how and why is it a case of back home in Nigeria, you cannot live together as a people? Why do we have to kill ourselves? There are tons of Nigerians all over the world who hold passports of different nationalities. A lot of them do want to come back to Nigeria, but they just can't. Why can't they? Because of their own people, not because of any other ethnic group, but their own people. It's difficult for them to find people to actually send money to who are their own people. It's actually difficult for them to entrust projects to people who are their own people. It's actually difficult for them to feel safe around people who are their own people, and they are in Nigeria. And yet everybody is pointing fingers at each other. Everybody is blaming each other. Nigeria probably needs new Nigerians. As somebody said earlier on today, it is Nigerians that have failed Nigeria. It's not the other way around. Nigerians do not need to sojourn in other countries, probably visit. But Nigerians don't need to be crossing the Sahara deserts. Nigerians do not need to get into rafts and try to cross the Mediterranean and get into Europe. Nigerians don't need to be illegal aliens in other countries, countries that ordinarily are not even half as rich as Nigeria. But we have seen that that's what happened to Nigerians. But who is responsible? They are Nigerians. It's not Nigeria that is responsible. Nigeria is an entity, yes. But Nigeria is not the individuals in Nigeria. And until we all start looking at ourselves and start asking the right questions, nothing is ever going to change. Uncivil discourse is not the way forward. Banditry is not the way forward. Ethnic strife is not the way forward. Religious strife is not the way forward either. We keep hearing Biafra Republic, Oduduwa Republic. Now we keep forgetting that every zone in Nigeria has representatives in the National Assembly. If truly these agitations were justifiable, why can't representatives of those regions, of those peoples who are agitating, why can't they get up and say, you know what? We want to move a motion for a referendum in the country. Is that not the easiest thing to do as opposed to armed agitation or civil strife, killing each other. I mean, that's the difficult route, isn't it? The easier route is talk to your representatives and tell them, you know what? You need to speak up for us if you're representing us and actually ask for a referendum. They work for you, you don't work for them. So mandate them. Let them actually ask for a referendum at the National Assembly. Let it be passed into law. Let it be made legal that you can actually vote and say, you know what, we do not want to be a part of this entity anymore. Everybody has a right to self-determination. Well, when I say everybody, the people have a right to self-determination. So far, it is done the legal way. Now, nobody's saying that they cannot do it the hard way. But the truth is, I don't think the hard way is worth it at all. No human life is worth that kind of agitation, especially when there's an option and it can be done in the civil and orderly manner, and you can have your self-determination. Hopefully, the self-determination will be the solution to the problems on ground. But in my own opinion, if you ask me, I doubt. Why do I say I doubt? Now, every single state in Nigeria, like I mentioned earlier on, is being governed by, quote unquote, an indigene. These people are responsible for the finances of those states. These people are responsible for the projects that are meant to take place in those states to better the lives of the people in those states. Now, the peculiarity of Nigeria is this. In every sane environment, you would have a budget before an allocation is made. In Nigeria, allocations are made without a budget. And what do I mean? When they are sharing the federal allocation, what is the monitoring system for the sharing of that federal allocation? Who monitors where the monies go? Who reports to whom? Well, a guest that we had on a few months ago actually said, nobody even knows who to ask questions when it comes to the economy of the country. They don't know who's managing the economy of the country. So there's no accountability anywhere. Now everybody points at the center, at the federal government. Most people don't know who the local government chairmen are. They probably don't even know who the councillors are. They don't know the powers that the local governments have. They don't know how the governors have subverted the powers of the local governments. And they're not even bothering to look into it. Now, you can't fight a fight that you have no knowledge of. For you to be able to win, you need to acquire knowledge. Now, the knowledge I'm talking about now is you knowing what your environment is. Know who are the stakeholders in your environment. A lot of places that you go all over Nigeria now, they have estates, self-help. Most people have resorted to providing security for themselves. So they organize themselves into groups in their enclaves, set up a small security unit to help them protect their families and their homes. Now, if you can take that initiative, then you should be able to go the next step further, which is knowing who is responsible on the government side of things for the little infrastructure that is needed in that little enclave that you live in. And then start addressing those people. Why don't you take it from the people that are close to you? In Lagos State, you can drive for 4.5 hours going one way and another 4 hours coming back. So if you're born in Lagos, you go to primary school in Lagos, 6 years. You go to secondary school in Lagos, under 6 years. You do 4 years of university in Lagos. And then you now work in Lagos till you're at the age of 60. Now do your rough math. You're probably going to spend 24 years of your life in traffic. And that's not a problem. If you go to Aba and you see the rubbish heaps in Aba, you probably suffer palpitations. You will not be able to believe that people work and live in a lot of those areas where you see that. And nobody's taking on the local government chairman there. Nobody's taking on the governors. All the discussions are around ethnic sentiments. Some children were kidnapped in Kagara, in Niger State, 2 days ago. It was yesterday. Now, those children, according to somebody else, had already lost their freedom even before they were kidnapped. Why? Because of the deplorable nature of that school that they go to. Practically no infrastructure in that environment. Niger State as a whole, if you go there, bad roads everywhere. I can't tell you about an incident that I had, where a journey that was supposed to take me just 3 hours took me 14 hours. And it wasn't a case of traffic. It was just a bad infrastructure in one state. Nothing is working there. If you go to Kaduna, where I went to school, where I practically grew up, where I practically call second home, and you go to a place like Zaria, for instance, in the morning at 7 o'clock in the morning when you're driving past, you see maybe about 20, 30 youth under the baobab tree. They have nowhere they're going, no destination, but they have to get up in the morning. When you're coming back 12 hours later, that number would have multiplied by 20. You probably see about 100 of them, all talking about nothing, all doing nothing. Everybody's just there. They have no education. They have no opportunities. The few people who have been trying to give back into the society, who have gone out of those areas, who have perchance made it in life, so to speak, have tried to give back. But how many people can you give back to in such a situation? You look like a beautiful city like Maiduguri, which was a charm when I was a child. Every time I went there, I used to admire the beauty, the architecture, the landscape, everything. And it's now a shadow of itself. Look at Sokoto. Look at Zamfara. They now go to states like Osun. Look at Oyo. And then you go down to Bayelsa. All of these states send a commissioner of finance to Abuja every month, once a month, to go and collect federal allocation. All the states collect taxes from their citizens. And do you know what you get for it? We'll show you a short video about Kagara in Niger State. We'll be right back. I'm speechless. The first time I saw it, I was still speechless. That is not an environment you can rehabilitate. It's actually meant for demolition. And then you put the children of human beings, people, you put them in that environment, and you expect them to be able to learn something. You expect them to be able to contribute back to society in a positive way. Is that why so many of the government officials move around with 6, 7 armed policemen at the same time? Because they know the impact of what they're doing? How can you keep children in such an environment? How can you do that? How can you not have a conscience? And this is not about any particular part of the country, it is about the entire country. Where a National Assembly member is commissioning pit latrines as public toilets, and they've collected monies for constituency projects. Why are people fighting themselves? Why are people not looking at these people that are actually responsible? Why do we protect our own instead of looking them in the eye and telling them, look, you are responsible for this thing. Account for it. There are people dying every day, and they're not supposed to die over those kind of things that are killing them. The basic healthcare infrastructure is not there, and there are funds allocated for it. Universal basic education, there are funds allocated for it. Local government education, there are funds allocated for it. Why are we silent on the things that truly matter? Why are we allowing a few people to divide the entire country just for the sake of their own pockets? The media, unfortunately, is not playing the role it's supposed to play. As a matter of fact, what the media is doing is, the media is actually fueling the entire situation. And it's rather unfortunate. Yes, we do agree. Every media house was set up with an agenda behind it. It was meant to support a particular cause and be the voice of that cause. But there is no cause that's supposed to be a cause of genocide. There's no cause that's supposed to be a cause of ethnic strife. There's no cause that's supposed to be a cause of religious strife. It is a terrible thing. And Nigerians need to start asking the right questions. You need to stop fighting each other on social media. You need to stop fighting each other in beer parlors and on the streets. You need to stop looking at the next man as your enemy. If you truly did elect people into government, then those people are accountable to you. That's the way it works. Things truly need to change because that country is on the brink of collapse. Now we're going to take a short break. When we get back, our guest has probably been able to resolve his technical issues. His name is Jawad Iginla, and he will be coming back on screen with me when we come back right after this short commercial break. Thank you. Hello.
Hello.
Jawad.
Hi, Mr. Big.
Hi, how you doing?
Not bad, not bad, not bad.
Sorry you've been having technical issues. I hope all is well now.
Yes, 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 yes. The the hidden monster. Yes, yes, yes. That's the
Oh,
issue.
yes. Yeah. Technology is technology. You can't beat it. When it decides that it's going to set you back, it will definitely set you back.
Correct, 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 correct,
Yeah.
correct.
And unfortunately, in a country like Nigeria, a lot of people are taking things for granted.
Hmm.
So when they do have things like these technical issues, they just look at it and say, the internet is not working, and then they just leave it at that. But when you live outside Nigeria, you live in other countries, it is something that becomes really worrisome because you know how much of your life depends on it because a lot of people presently are working from home and they
Mhm.
need the basic infrastructure like the internet to be able to function adequately.
Correct.
So now we missed you for quite a while, and we've been talking about Nigeria, the challenges, different things that you see or are seeing. We mentioned 1966 when I was talking earlier on, and 1966 being part of the sequence of events that have led us to where we are
Okay.
as a people today. Or should I say, as a peoples? So, which is correct? Is Nigeria on the brink of collapse? Why have we found ourselves in such a difficult position where there's so much division amongst our people and a lack of accountability on the part of the people themselves?
I would I would take a slightly optimistic view to say all is not lost. Things can still be rescued, but to rescue means we have to be honest with each other. We have to be honest in understanding that Nigeria, as we see it, was not the original idea.
Okay.
Nigeria was set up as an enterprise. The royal, yes.
Oh wow, okay.
So
I think you will have to explain that to the guests because they just might not understand exactly what you
okay,
mean.
okay. When I mean Nigeria was set up as an enterprise, you're looking at the Royal Niger Company.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the Royal Niger Company is a conglomerate of treaties that were signed with various peoples within the body of Nigeria. We start from the east. You have the Okobos, you have the Jaws. So treaties were signed along the way. The name in question is Mr. Goldie. Mr. Goldie came into Nigeria with the idea of getting palm oil as quote unquote, that was supposed to be the black gold, not oil as we know it. So palm oil was supposed to be the black gold. So with black gold meant you had to sort of do deals with various bodies in order to get to it, because they refused to take most of the traders who arrived on the shores into the hinterland. But in order to access the hinterland, it meant you go in, and for some reason, you're going to have to come in contact with the locals. What happens when you come in contact with the locals? You're going to have strife. The maxing gun comes into play. The maxing gun, undermines the power of whoever is in charge. In order to ensure that that area is pacified, you sign treaties and you move on to the next. So in the course of time, you gather all these treaties together. They became part of a body. They became what we know as a protectorate.
Okay.
So you have this body here, you have that body here, and before you know it, you had the Southern Protectorate. The same thing transpired in the North, but not as we know it. It was more of a colonial project per se. So it was, we go there, we must subjugate everybody in there. And the word they use is pacification.
Okay.
So having done that, going forward, entered the First World War, the Second World War. When the Second World War happened, what are we going to do with these people once the war ends? America was against colonialism. In order to be seen to be forward-facing, people were called together to say, oh, okay, self-determination was the next best thing. Nigerians came together, Lord Lugard came in, he became the face of the Queen here, and before you know it, we were all speaking to each other, and not as we know it today, but we sort of got along. And eventually, independence came. And even before then, even before independence, there was the issue of, are we ready? If we're not ready, when would we be ready? Which was what happened in 1956. Is Nigeria ready for independence? Nigeria is not yet ready, so when should we be? So eventually everything got pushed until 1960. And I'm sure we'll go into it more at some point. People came together, they did what was called the elections and what have you. The rules were given to us of how we're going to govern ourselves.
So we did the rules.
The rules, which is basically the constitution as we know it today.
So Nigerians were not the ones that made the rules.
The Manifesting Constitution, which is the last, I think it was the last one before, it was the last one before we got independence, was a modicum of edicts that they've inherited over time. Because something happened in the 2004. I believe that was when we became 100 years.
Yes.
You notice it harked back to 1914. So what happened in 1914 that all of a sudden will unravel itself in 2004?
No, it's 2014, sorry.
2014.
Yes.
That will unravel itself in 2014. Which means something was up for renewal. So which is why I go back to the idea that it was set up as an enterprise. Companies, leases, and what have you. It could have been a lease. We never know. Our leaders are not forthright with us. They've never really told us what they signed, what we inherited. It was just a question of, here's a flag, here's a pledge, sing your pledge, recite your pledge, wave the flag, you'll be all happy. We've never really sat down to have a conversations with each other to say, Mr. Habib, what do you want out of this relationship? Oh, Mr. Iginla, this is what I want. Well, I'm willing to compromise on this. I'm willing to not let go of that. And then we chinwag, we iron up our resolutions, and we go forward. Nigeria will continue to be what it is today until that happens. It's a grim reality, but it's going to happen.
So the Nigeria that we know today was not the same Nigeria that we had, say, in 1986, 87. Let's even say 1983, because the military took over in 1985. Now, as of that
before then 83.
So when you look at the Shehu Shagari presidency, and you look at the aftermath when the present president, who was then a general in the Nigerian army, before they took over, there were federal government colleges, and you had students from everywhere in the country who had converged in different federal government colleges all over the country, and they were called unity schools at that point in time. There was seemingly a lot of love flowing around. People seemed integrated. People seemed able to relate with one another. You would see a case of where, if you were in Kaduna, you will see an Ahmed following an Ikechukwu to his family home in Onitsha for the holidays. And all of a sudden, something that is just a couple of years ago now seems to be something that's in very, 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 very far distant history, where we can even sit and relate with each other anymore.
Okay.
Where have we gone wrong as a people at this point?
Okay. Okay. I would put it down to three things, really. You mentioned the idea of schools. Where are those unity schools now?
They're a shadow of themselves. Nobody even sends their kids to those schools anymore, as far as I know.
Thank you very much. So if you've removed that from the conversation, you've removed the conduit of conversation. Because what then happens is people are now thinking in silos.
Mm-hmm.
Now, social media, as you and I know it, in this side of the world, far different from social media as is known back home. Here, you're able to look at the message that pops up on your feed. In 2-3 seconds, you can check whether it's true or not. Half of the time back home, we engage in sensationalism, which is a story pops up, that story runs the rounds, and before you know it, before it's debunked, that builds a kind of narrative, not the kind of narrative you want. Take, for instance, the case of Boko Haram. The idea of Boko Haram in itself, if you look at just the name alone says Boko Haram, Western education is
forbidden.
Forbidden. Where does that say? Where, in the Quran, the Hadiths, where is it forbidden that you seek knowledge?
Apparently, that not the first thing that was said to the Holy Prophet Muhammad.
Thank you very much. It was read, and he says, "What do you want me to read? Read. What do you want me to read?" So he acknowledged the fact that he doesn't know how to read. Then he was taught. So he even asked his followers, seek knowledge even as far as the land of China. So why in Boko Haram started in 2004? So why in 2004 will somebody then stand in front of a camera and tell you education is forbidden? And then we accept it as the norm?
Apparently, I think Boko Haram is an offshoot of the Metasini movement, and that has been on since the 70s.
Yeah, but even the Metasini, in its, I think its strongest hold then was in Kaduna, if I'm not mistaken.
Kano,
okay. Now, in Kano, you have some of the most erudite gentlemen and women around. They would have debunked it. They debunked it then. He died a death. And then now the offshoot is Boko Haram in Borno State. So it goes back to the idea that we need education. We need functional education. We need empowering education. Otherwise, this circle will continue to spiral. Even the, quote unquote, the West, which is the bedrock of education, is lacking. And why? Question of leadership.
Yes.
Leadership.
Effective leadership.
Effective leadership. And I don't just mean leadership in the political sphere, be it religious, traditional, and of course political, which is where we're at today. So imagine that vacuum, to the point where when an injustice is carried, you need a local champion to voice the fears, the concern of people. How can a society like that survive?
Now, when you speak of local champions, for instance, we have seen a trend that has, started in Nigeria, and which is there seems to be a certain type of character that is required for you to attain some form of leadership status. A lot of those people, in my own opinion, adequately should not be speaking for nations within a nation, because most of the so-called ethnic tribes in Nigeria are actually nations in themselves.
True,
Because
true.
you have a small ethnic group in Nigeria numbering 6-7 million. The population of the country that I'm resident in, which is Ireland, is less than 5 million, and they are called a nation.
The nation, yeah.
So you now have people who ordinarily should not be looked upon as leaders speaking for the people. You see them giving mandates to people, and you're wondering, where did they get this level of power from? What happened to all the educated people in that environment? Or should I say highly educated people in that environment? What has happened to all the people who have a long line of pedigree, a long line of either political, social, religious, even though the religious, I'm a bit skeptical about that. But we know the influence that religion has had in terms of shaping, our social, political landscape. So you can't entirely rule it out. So you now start to wonder, all these people are not the ones that are speaking out. How come it is these types of fellows who are actually speaking out on the behalf of people?
Okay. I will put that down to, I'm not sure who said this, that for some reason the knowledgeable are not bold and the unlearned are now the bold one.
Okay.
The problem with that is we've grown largely indifferent to any transgressions whatsoever. It used to be the mindset that when you see things and it's against the norms of society, you call it out. But for some, all of a sudden now, the rules of the streets is running everything. The elders used to be able to say, "Oh, guys, you can't do that. That's against. We don't do that here." That kind of thing. But now, because everything is muscle bound, is muscle led, there's a forefather somewhere who sees every nook and cranny as a turf to be fought over.
His
People
fiefdom.
think, sorry?
His fiefdom.
Exactly. People think, if I stick my neck out, who is going to take care of my kids, my family, and what have you?
Okay.
But then, what I find shocking about that situation is this. I will spread it out a bit. If you have one champion, now I'll hack back to that word. One champion speaking for the entire Southwest, one champion speaking for the entire Southeast. Sooner or later, you're going to have what it is we're here talking about, the collapse. I would say we need, as people, to form groups, form general bodies, voluntary organizations. And start championing one cause after the other, be it education. I know it's been done, but we need to be much more vocal about it. Because like you said, when one person steps forward and starts speaking for an entire nation, we're in trouble. If they mistake, it is deemed to be the voice of everybody else. How do we check those kind of people? Which is where we need voluntary bodies to step in. Now,
You are quite correct, because I'll buttress your point. When you look at the likes of the ongoing issue of the Herdsmen, for instance, Everybody seems to think that Miyetti Allah, for instance, speaks for the Fulanis, who are a nation on their own. And that calls into question a lot of high-profile Fulani people that you probably know. Even those that you do not know personally, you probably will have read about on pages of newspapers, or you've seen them on television. And you start to wonder, so if a whole nation is being criminalized, blanket criminalization, and you from there are not speaking out, you are leaving it to an organization that is more or less a business organization to speak out on behalf of that nation. Then that means there are a lot of deep-rooted problems, because first things first, not every member of Niyati Allah, for instance, is Fulani. Not every one of them is actually from the north, because you actually have MAC members from southwest Nigeria and southeast Nigeria, and even from the south. So how can MAC now be speaking for the Fulani when the Fulani are being criminalized, when there's a blanket assertion that every Fulani is a criminal, and every Fulani is either a headsman or a bandit? There's no halfway, there's no in between. So I do agree with your point that is a very, very deep-rooted issue that needs to be weeded out. You cannot have rogue organizations, because that's what I will call them, because if you're a business organization, what role exactly do you have speaking politically for a nation, either an ethnic group, a tribal group? What business do you have being the one to speak out? You can speak out when it concerns your business in itself, but speaking out for a people?
There was a US Army Strategic Studies report last year that came out, and it was talking about the problems of instability in Nigeria, and it broke down the problem to a fine detail that you wonder, do we have leaders that actually read this report? It's not a hidden report. It's, if you go on the internet and you just enter the US Army Strategic Studies report on Nigeria, instability in Nigeria, it is there. One of the key things that was mentioned is the principal reasons why you have the problems of the headsmen is this. Boko Haram rustles their cattle. Yeah?
Yes.
And most of the cattle were reared around the Lake Chad region and what have you. So the Fulanis were then forced to come in hinterland. And in coming in hinterland, they came with guns. Not because they were going to attack whoever it is they're going to, but largely because they came from a point of defense.
Okay.
Okay. So they came from a point of defense because, they've been having backs and forths with Boko Haram. So they armed themselves in regards to that problem. Now, going forward, they were not suddenly going to toss the weapons away and what have you. Now, the downside of that is they've now brought the cattle into places where the cattle is not normally welcome. Any pushback, they resort to the Hilaire-length defense tactics. There is intransigence, you have bloody riots, you have killings and what have you. Now, that army report then said this. It says they will expect the Nigerian government to educate both the farmers and the Fulanis.
Okay.
To say, this is when you can come onto the land when we finish our harvest. And once we finish our harvest, you have to leave because we need to clear the fields in preparation for next year's planting season.
Yeah.
Technology can help with this aspect of it. You could tag trees where if cows are coming, the farmer knows that So many things. And it's like, why are we not using all this? This is a foreign army telling you they know your problem into two. Why are we not talking to them? Why don't we have research bodies that look into all this?
Yeah.
We have an issue of climate change. Nigerians are not looking at it. We have over 20 million heads of cattle. 20 million. So which means at some point in the not too distant future, that 20 million cattle is going to be competing with humans for resources like water. If we can't plant to eat, to feed ourselves, guess what we're going to eat?
The cattle.
Thank you very much. So you see this kind of problem. And it is all down to lack of leadership and no planning. Lack of education as well.
Well, when going back to that issue of the education, there was a skirmish that led to a much bigger issue in Ibadan, Oyo State. Just a few days ago, in the past 48 hours, as a matter of fact, and all hell broke loose. Now, we're going to look at some of the related incidents, things that happened prior to that, and then we'll come back and discuss about the issue of education and the role it has to play when it comes to leadership. We'll be right back.
Okay.
A source said people in the area woke up to another round of clashes as both youth from the Yoruba and Hausa extractions vowed to square it out.
Can you see the Hausas running? They are running for their life. Wọ́n pọ̀ lẹ́yìn o. Wọ́n pọ̀ gan lẹ́yìn o. Ẹ má bọ̀ àwọn kẹ̀kí ló tẹ̀. Yorùbá ni wá, 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 Yorùbá ni wá. Ẹ̀gbọ́n Yorùbá ni wá, Yorùbá ni wá, Yorùbá ni wá, Yorùbá ni wá.
Sasa ti tán. Sasa ti tán. Sasa ti tán.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
That makes uncomfortable view. That makes really uncomfortable view. And you will think there's a governor in that state. You will think, I know of at least 2 traditional rulers in there that can voice the reasonable voice of respect. We're talking about your state, yes. You have the Olubadu. You have the Alaafin for you. What are they doing?
You also have the Oni of Ife.
I mean,
well, Ife is in Osun State now.
He's in Osun State, yes.
My bad.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Now, let's quickly watch this video as well. And let's, now take on that issue of that leadership.
It was around 3:30 a.m. My brother living in my former house alerted me that some arsonists attacked my house and set it ablaze. They came in Sienna bus and shot sporadically. On getting to my house, it was already on fire. so I called firefighters who put it off. I'm not after any political appointment. All I'm after is for the Fulani killer herdsmen who are kidnapping, raping, and killing our people to vacate our land in Southwest.
Take it on now. It's involved.
Unfortunately, it seems that video
Yeah.
is not playing.
I mean, I could glean a lot from the audio.
From the audio.
Yeah, I could. I mean, I could make sense of what transpired through the audio. It's and I think the guy being referred to as making the plea there is Sunday Igboho.
Yes.
Okay.
And that, brings to light a lot of the issues that have been going on for quite a while. Especially when you look at the issue of the Niger Delta, how things spiraled out of control. When we had the likes of Ken Saro-Wiwa leading the agitation, the narrative was quite different to when it became an issue of the armed youth taking over the agitation. Yes, quite all right. You had the likes of Isaac Adakaboro, who decided at that point in time that probably it was time for armed agitation. But there was still a very clear difference between Isaac Adakaboro and Ken Saro-Wiwa.
Sure.
Then you now look at northern Nigeria and you see the role that political thugs have played, so much so that a lot of them actually hold elected office as councillors and all this kind of stuff, because their crude bosses use them to hold on to power. Then you now have in the Southwest as well, where we have had a long list of them. I can't even
don't even go there.
because they are quite prominent when you look at it from the Southwest of Nigeria. They seem to be major players when it comes to the politics of Western Nigeria. So you now have to start to ask, how did political thugs gain so much power? How did we allow educated people to take a step back from politics? Because there's nothing you can do without politics.
True.
Even within your home, between yourself, your wife, and your children,
You play politics.
into politics.
Yeah.
So how did we now allow such a country like Nigeria to descend to the abyss that is in right now?
Okay. If you look in the West and you look at their political parties, they have a philosophy. Each party has a philosophy.
Yes.
You have the center right, the center left. In the UK, we have the Labour Party, we have the Conservatives, we have the Liberal Democrats. You have the Greens, you have the Plaid Cymru, you have a whole host of them. You have the Scottish National Party, you have, name it, you have it. The Looney Raving Party, you have it. Okay. But you knew what they stand for. In Nigeria, we've never had, okay, fine, maybe in the 70s. And even then, it was divisive kind of politics. It wasn't really politics centered on philosophy. You had some sterling programs that will say, okay, this is how you tell this one from this one. But by and large, we've not really matured politically. We've always seen our politics in light of celebrities or a figurehead. So if Habib was leading our party, Habib will be the end and be all of everything that represents that party. So if Habib has a shady scandal, rather than face Habib head on, we will not do so. What we will do is we would do what is called the whataboutism. Oh, but your leader did that. Your leader did. And then he stacks up. Before you know it, everybody has a skeleton in their cupboard. It's a question of whoever allows theirs to fall out of the cupboard and is embarrassed enough to leave the stage. Because in order to have political ideology, you have to be able to stand based on respect and based on the ideal that if you're wrong, you're willing to step aside on the basis that that ideology does not hold up to scrutiny.
Okay, true.
But we've never done that. Even with, what's it called? Even the parties of the late 70s, your UPN, your PRPs, your UPN, your GMPP, your MPN. If you look at it, it's never been about anything. I mean, you have the odd slogan, but beyond if you lift the hood off the slogan, it's nothing there. There's nothing like saying, oh, we're a party of the economy. We're a party that looks out for old people. We're a party that looks out for education. We're a party that ours is the right of women. None. We just have a figurehead and we follow the figurehead. And I'll hack back to what you said. These guys are thugs. Midwest, Southwest, the North, wherever. And they're just holding on to power. Because if you look at it, here's a country that has a budget. Budgets are essentially plans. Plans are backed by finance. Where are the plans? Okay, here are the plans. Where's the money? We're stuck. Then you have politicians launching toilets, launching a borehole. I mean, come on. There was a kidnap that happened lately. I think it was in Katsina State. Did you see the school? Did you see the state of that school?
That was in Niger State. Yes, we'll play the video for you. You can have it.
Did you see the state of that school?
Oh yes, we'll be right back.
I mean, look at that.
We played that earlier on. We played that video earlier on, and I made mention of a comment that somebody made, and the person said, "These children were already in captivity. They had lost their freedom even before they were kidnapped."
And did you notice on the, I think it's just the beam of one of the buildings there, it's written there, something honest.
But those are not buildings.
No, I'm not. I know they're not.
Because
I know they're not. I know they're structures. Let's not call them buildings. They're just structures. And somebody has decided.
It's unbelievable that you would allow children to be in such an environment.
Man, it's a cruel joke. But unfortunately, the joke is not on the kids. The joke is on the future of Nigeria. Those kids in there, Now they've gone through a traumatic experience. How are they really going to learn? Who is going to give them therapy to, tell them that that's a one-off, it's never going to happen again? How are they going to be able to face their studies and what have you? So you've got that problem. Then you've also got the idea that you've brought them back to that same scenario. Nothing has changed there. How do they go forward? How do they go forward? We have 774 local governments, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Each of these local government has an allocation from the center. What happened? What is happening?
There's a jamboree every month where the commissioners of finance from each state go to the center to go and collect the allocation. Now, the allocation that the commissioners of finance go for is supposed to be for the state, but not for the local government. The local government is supposed to have its own account where their own funds are disbursed directly.
Okay.
But unfortunately, that has not been the case. It has been a case of the governors have subverted the law. They have been able to manipulate it in such a way that all allocations for a particular state, both for the local government and for the state, comes through them.
I'll buttress your point with that. There's a friend of mine who will probably not like me saying this. When Okorocha was governor of Imo State,
Yes.
the guy cornered literally everything financial to do with that. I mean, it's one thing for you to let the odd crumb go, but this guy cornered everything to the point where if they wanted to buy pork, they literally had to go back to the governor's office. Now, we don't know whether that happens in every other state, but let's just say it does.
That's about the scenario.
No, let's just, I mean, we're not privy to everything, but this is what we know. Okay, let's just assume it does in, maybe we've got 37 states. Let's presume it happens in 25 states. Now, in the others, it doesn't really happen, or maybe not as much. Surely at some point, people are going to move from those deprived areas. You see where I'm going with this?
Yes.
They're going to move from their deprived areas and they're going to go to people who don't have enough to pressure the system there.
Yes.
Which brings us back to the video you showed earlier. That is what is happening. That constant move to go elsewhere to alleviate whatever suffering it is we have over there, here, wherein everybody has been given the same thing. But the guy we've appointed to be our Julius Caesar has decided, you know what? I run the roost here. Nothing is going to happen without my say-so.
So now, talking about Owele Rochas Okorocha.
Yes.
What state is he from?
It's from Imo State, I believe. Yes.
Okay. So he is from Imo State. He governed Imo State and he took over all the finances of Imo State. But you don't see the citizens of Imo State going after him. Rather, they would go after the man in the center.
Well, because I was privy to some of the conversations that transpired with regards to him, I would say they did. To a larger extent, they did.
Okay.
But again, as with everything within our home country, if you don't have the means, all you do is make noise.
Okay.
Now, it's one thing for you to know this guy is not a people's man. If you don't have the means or the power to do anything about it, excuse me, if you don't have the means or the power to do anything about it, you will continue to, you will raise concerns, and that is all it is going to be. Concerns.
But is that not an actual indication that Nigeria is on the brink of collapse? Because if you elect an official into office and then you cannot hold that official to account, has the system not collapsed?
The system has collapsed insofar as any normal, credible, any normal, sane thinking person will think it has. You don't need physical collapse. You need to see it manifest itself. In the sense that you know what it is to get a passport, a Nigerian passport, in our embassies here. That's not a credible system to work with.
I have not personally experienced the challenge.
But you've heard stories. I can tell you. I can tell you
because I've heard quite a few reports about what goes on.
Yeah, it's somewhat of a nightmarish experience.
But I have been lucky.
Sorry?
I have been lucky. I've never.
Well. Maybe you might have to bottle your luck and start spreading it around, because in London, the place is called Northumberland. It is you go in there and you basically, depending on your faith, you cross yourself, you pray, and you go in there. It happens as it should happen, and you leave. Ideally, it's a straightforward system. You fill a form, you pay for your passport, the date of issue should be there, then you go there and you collect. But it's not pretty straightforward. Even when you go there, you still have to go through someone, you have to jump through hoops for them to hand you the passport. It's like, why can't you even post it? Why can't you post it? Okay, that's an aside. If we really go into Nigeria from the airport, okay, I understand Muritala Mohammed has been revamped and a new terminal building we have. But what about the other airports? Are they not just glorified hangars? Airstrips? Some of them you can't even land at night.
Most.
Thank you very much. And that's for an economy. That is for a country that sits on 92,000 square kilometers of territory. From Lagos to Sokoto by road in 1992 will take you 12 hours. And then the roads were motorable then. You don't have your bandits and what have you.
Yes.
Now, to do the same journey, you probably would have to fly. But Sokoto Airport probably will not be able to take aircrafts at night. Why? So which means any business I want to do with anybody in Sokoto that necessitates me going there means if I miss one flight that goes during the daytime, that is it for the day.
Yeah, but would that not be a case of the demand and supply? Because when you look at how expensive it is to fly within Nigeria, most people would not be able to afford it. So there's probably no point in running an airport where aircrafts are not coming to more than once a day or twice a day.
I'll push back on that. Air transport is supposed to be the cheapest at the moment, even in Europe.
In terms of time value.
In terms of time value, and in terms of, even in terms of cost. Because if you create the demand, the demand is there, but it's not just being nurtured. if you create the demand, people will fly. And when people fly, facilities must back that demand. At the
Yes.
moment, it doesn't. And then there is another there's another side to it. The cost of food, very expensive in my country, in Nigeria. You have onions, you have tomatoes, you have all of that in the north. We still rely on trucks to bring them down south. Why can't we have train carriages that bring them down every week, or cargo planes, and take them around, crisscross the entire country?
Well, according to available data, almost 60% of the produce
Mhm.
goes to waste.
That in itself is a problem. If you enter any local supermarket in Ireland, you will find stuff that is in season and stuff that is out of season. The case of logistics. Logistics demands that if there is a demand for this particular product, that product either goes into deep freeze, or you have places like Kenya, places like Holland, where they have greenhouses. There's a constant stream coming through. And once it gets in, it goes into storage. Once that batch is exhausted, another batch comes in. Where is our logistical operations in Nigeria? We're not even logistical, we're anything.
Yeah, but the question I would like to ask, we'll need to close very soon because
yeah.
As usual, we have overrun our time, but it gets more and more interesting as we go along, unfortunately. But now there are some images I saw earlier today, but we were not able to put up those images due to copyright issues. Now, there are railway lines being, set in some parts of the country where the government is trying to revamp the railway system. And a couple of fellows, about 6 or 7 of them, were apprehended by the Nigerian police, where they had gone and stolen the railway lines that were just newly constructed. They had loaded different parts into different vehicles, and they were nabbed by the police with all those stuff, with them. So it now beggars a deep question. Who is responsible for Nigeria's imminent collapse? Is it Nigerians or is it the Nigerian government?
I'll share the blame out equally.
Okay.
And here it goes. I come to you, I solicit for your vote. You give me your vote, and you step back, and you let me get on with it. When I say get on with it, I do whatever it is I want to do. 4 years' time, I come back again, solicit your vote, no questions asked, you give it to me again. In fact, you invite some of your friends to vote for me. They do. I go back and I do my stuff. So, in a way, somebody is enabling what is going on, and we are all enablers. The average Nigerian is an enabler who has enabled the politician. So the politician will then point back to the Nigerians, but they're happy with it. Why should I change? Change the Nigerian mindset, you will change the leaders.
Hopefully, something's going to happen pretty soon. Let's all keep our fingers crossed. The Nigerian issue is an ongoing discussion that's probably not going to end anytime soon due to the nature of the ongoing incidents.
Yep.
War drums are beating all across the country. Different people are making different types of calls. Some scary, some not so scary, but generally worrisome across all board. Now, We'd like to say a very big thank you to you, Jawad Iginla, for taking out the time to join us tonight. We are sorry about the technical issues you were suffering earlier on. That made you join the show a little bit further down the line. But we do hope to have you on again as usual because you're a great guest. You have always been a great guest. Jawad has been on this show quite a few times, and we do enjoy bringing Jawad on because of the depth of his knowledge, especially when it comes to Nigeria, the history of Nigeria. And Jawad is also a published author and is also rolling out another book very soon. And that book is on this same topic, which is the issue or issues that surround Nigeria. Thank you very much, Jawad. We hope to see you again soon. You have a
Thanks
great
for
night.
having me. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
So, long discussion, but that discussion is far from over. As a matter of fact, we have not even come close to taking the discussion to a near conclusion. We will be interviewing a few other guests somewhere down the line and having this discussion about the issues ongoing in Nigeria. And hopefully, maybe we'll start calling each other's attention to the issues that are on the ground and trying to find solutions to what's going on. Thank you so much for taking out the time to join us. We're sorry about the late start, so maybe about 9 minutes late, unfortunately. But we hope that we will not be starting late on our next show. And if you have not seen the shower hour, especially the last show, yes, we only run 2 episodes of the shower hour. Shower hour comes on at 10 o'clock on Saturdays. It's the bomb. We are literally speaking, that is. It's a fantastic show to watch. I think you should join myself and the main host, Catherine, and discover a few things when it comes to life and relationships and some of the dynamic things that you've always known, but you never actually heard people speak about. You need to watch the previous show. I'm sure you would love it. You have a great night and make sure you join us on Saturday night at 10 o'clock to watch. That's 10 o'clock GMT. So if you're probably in Nigeria, that's probably going to be 11 p.m. So we would say, please join us. Enjoy the conversation. You probably would love to stick with the shower hour as well. You have a great night. Good night.